Okay, welcome everybody again to Archer's Pizza in La Mission, Baja, California. We are Kevin here and Val, and we're doing intuitive senses survival sessions. And we're talking about discussing and educating people about intuition and how it works and what it is. And we thought we'd share with you today some of what we've found out about intuition. It's January 27th, 2024. And again, I'm Val and this is Kevin. So we thought we'd do a different kind of format today where we ask each other questions. And this is spontaneous and ad lib, but it's more fun this way today at least. So again, I will ask the first question to Kevin and see what he comes up with here with the answer about intuition. And Kevin, you've had a lot of experiences with remote viewing, astral traveling, real side experiences, dreams, etc. How does intuition play a part in all this? I mean, do you use your intuition on the real side? Do you use it here in the physical? How does it play in your daily life? How do you use intuition for purposes of benefit for you in your life? That's the first question.
Well, regardless of where you are, be it on the physical or in the middle of an astral projection, if say you happen to be doing such, or on the real side where you're operating multi-dimensionally, regardless of your positioning in the simulator or whatever life level and dimension that you might be on, you will always have access to your intuitive facility, because indeed the full creational makeup of yourself, all your body vehicles, and including your ethereal vehicle, will always be with you regardless of where you go. And indeed, ultimately, the real awareness that you actually are, which the intuition is the closest part of your creational body vehicle mechanics in association with, that is what you are constantly, regardless of where you happen to be. And so really, as I said, in regards to the question, how does the intuition play how does the intuition play is a part of all those different situations? Well, it's a constant facility you can access regardless of where you are. And so, for example, you have most people tend to be rather resigned to the more denser sort of, if you will, parts of their created self, more the emotions generally, and the mind, and so if you're locked into those facilities more so, you're going to limit your ability to access your natural intuition, which, as I said, is the closest part to your real awareness. And so in order for the intuition to play in your life and to be accessible wherever you happen to be dimensionally, so you need to rather cultivate the practice and the focus to be placing the mind and emotions aside as much as realistically possible. Because as you place the mind and emotions aside, you're automatically then operating from more your intuitive, from more your intuitive self, which is as I said, the part that's the creational part that's closest to the real awareness. And with me, how it plays, how it operates within my experiences, is that the more I do stand in my intuitive self, or indeed the real awareness that is the closest part to, then the more so I will have the knowing and the direction of how to operate, not only on the physical level but on the real side as well. Because what I found on the real side is that you can be in two modes, if you will. You can either be operating from the personal self, or you can be operating more so intuitively or real awareness orientated. And if you're operating more so as your real awareness self, or putting aside the mind and emotions of the consciousness, the more so you will simply know what to do, where to go, and how to operate and be okay in any situation regardless of the eventuality. Because if you sit in just the consciousness, all you have to draw from is all the references that you have collated in this current lifetime in regards to experiential references, and so you're very limited accordingly. And so it's okay if you happen to be on the physical level where all the references you have collated are in relation to the current lifetime and position that you're in. If you go into the real side and now you're operating multi-dimensionally, can you then apply what is a strictly a human lifetime consciousness collection of references to other dimensional positions, universes and realms which have nothing to do or are in association in any way with the human experience, and which would be a definite no. And so you'd be somewhat lost in that regard, with absent of your intuitive self, which would be more so the oversight of everything that is going on creationally, and which then can afford you impressions and information insight far more so than this very limited consciousness. I mean, for example, with when I do astral projections, when I used to do astral projections, because they were always, it was always a personal self-thrill-seeking endeavour. What tended to happen was, because at that time I had no recognition of the real awareness or the new song which connected you to it and the process of awareness, so therefore I was always just limited to my personal self and what my personal self had in its current lifetime of reference memories. And so when I did my astral projections, I would find myself in all sorts of far-fangled places across multi-dimensional creation, but I would have no idea where to go or what to do or how to operate within them. But more recently, if I happen to do an inadvertent astral projection, as they sometimes just will go off automatically, what I find that instead, because I now have access and recognition of how to stand in my real awareness or intuitive self, if you will, therefore I have the greater access to the oversight that can provide, and so therefore I'm in far safer hands, if you will, and so therefore can operate more effectively and not be and therefore you just know where to go, what to do, and how to operate in these situations. So I would say that's how it works for me. I just step into I just put the consciousness of mind and emotions aside, and therefore you always have access to far more information than just your consciousness has available in this current lifetime of memory references, and so it's a survival tool.
Cool, thank you.
Okay, and so I was going to ask you, what should I ask you? Can't even think of a question to ask.
I had pasta for dinner last night. That's the question. When you used to be in Ekankar, and did they ever using Ekankar as a comparison to your current position where you're now in the new presentation and such, were you still utilising your intuition while you were in Ekankar as you are now currently in your current position as you are now? Or were the references at the time not the same as they are now, and therefore I can't formulate this question at all. No, I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
No, it was
between two positions, really.
It was more like a dullness, more than an intuition. Now that I have the comparison, what I was then in Ekankar is now, because that was more literal, even though Paul set it up, as a stepping stone, and some people got there or got what he was saying more than others, but it was more literal. It was more of more almost academic rather than intuitive. And as Ekankar progressed too, they kind of cut out the dream, the inner experiences, and especially with Harold, where you weren't even paying attention as much to the inner experiences, or they weren't really valid. as he put it. Don't depend on them as providing something for you. Then he actually said something like that, to paraphrase it. So now it's a lot more literal, a lot more academic and religious and dogmatic, even you could say. It's more like by the book rather than intuitive. So yeah, there's a great, really a huge comparison, because it was dull compared to now. It's alive since I've discovered what intuition is and how to use it. Now it's more of a seeingness to me, like I can see it. I can see things and I just follow that seeingness, as opposed to in Eckankar time, the thing was you think, feel, and act to create and manifest something. So you think it, or you imagine it, then you put some emotion into it and you do something. Well, that was the formula, but now there's really no formula to it. It's more of just a seeingness. Before it was more you were attached to what your creation was. Now, at least for me, what I create is more of a seeingness, and I'm not attached to it, but I'm still creating something. I'm still, doing something to create something for benefit for other people and myself. But it's more of a seeing, which again is an intuitive kind of, comes from the intuitive self. And I don't really try. It's doing without doing. It's just putting your attention on something, and then life shows you something, and then I've learned to follow it or to do something about what it shows me. So that's the way I approach intuition and doing something about it. But again, Eckankar, yeah, it was a step. But again, it couldn't be. It was sort of a safe, like a safety zone. Now I have to go out of that safety zone into unknown territory and follow what I see, or do something about what I see, and then see what happens. But it's been quite an adventure. It's been actually a good step for me in my journey to become more aware. Okay, next and last question for Kevin. Okay, so we're on the subject of intuition. Can you give me an example of a time where you used intuition, either on the real site or here, where it was a benefit for you and others? Basically, an experience that you had with it.
See, I'd probably refer to a real side experience to answer that question. So, let's see. Yeah, there was one real side experience I will share in regards to that, where I found myself on the real side and I was in the company of a large black dragon, and this large black dragon was basically affiliated with the dark forces in a certain capacity, but in reality he was almost operating on his own accord, but still of an ill-intended persuasion. And what he had done was he had created a sort of a magical order, if you will, and he was like the head of it. And throughout multi-dimensional creation, he had gathered all these various followers and devotees to him, and as they agreed to him, so he would facilitate the means by which they could acquire all manner of magical powers and abilities, which is generally what the draw of such paths or followings or magical circles are, that individuals can be bestowed with greater capability. which is one of the fundamental sort of thrill-seeking inclinations of the personal self, to be more so than they are currently. And so, as I approached this dragon, as I had an audience with him on the real side, he actually wanted to recruit me into his magical order. Now, were I to have refused this offer, which on the surface would have been the sensible thing to do, then what then transpired in experience would never have taken place, because a lot of times we'll be in certain real side experiential situations, and from the personal self, a very limited literal mind consideration position, there will be a certain point where the personal self, if you were to adhere to the mind and the thoughts, considerations, and more so the personal self and the consciousness, it would perhaps decide at that point to cut the experience short or to walk away, because we are always the deciders. So regardless of what situation we get ourselves into, we simply have to decide differently, and so alternative effects will follow, and we can simply be extricated from whatever situation we so desire according to where we place as we so decide. But in this situation, at that point where this black dragon basically invited me to join his magical order, as I said, the personal self impulse would be to refuse, because the impressions were revealed to me that he was an ill-intended, abrasive, black magic orientated body form. But nevertheless, I had the intuitive inclination to go along with it, and so I actually accepted his offer. I became part of his magical circle, and the reason for that then was then revealed as the experience unfolded, because I had the opportunity to engage with a number of other individuals who were involved within this particular black magic created group. And a number of them, in fact, were desiring to be extricated from it, but the case was that once they were involved with it, their lives would be forfeited if they walked away from it, and so they were terrified. They didn't want to remain in it, but they were terrified to leave. But of course, now I was operating within their circles, I had the opportunity to engage with all these characters, and therefore I was able to present them the means of their extrication, which was basically the new song, and the setting the intent with the real awareness process of his recognition, because part of this process does involve the facing and releasing of all idea agreements in the consciousness. And so as these individuals had agreed with this magic order, so they were then locked into the effects of what that agreement entailed, which was that they could experience being killed should they walk away from it, but through the process of awareness, as all these agreements then can be faced and released, so we can then become extricated from all these potential effects, including harm and elimination at the hands of others. And so I was able to provide a number of them with this opportunity, which gave them the means of which they could be not only extracted from this black magic circle. Obviously they had agreed initially to be involved with it, but they rather had a change of mind when they but as I said, it was a situation where they couldn't get out unless all their lives would be forfeited, and so I gave them the means of their extrication, and a number of them would do so and then be able to walk away without any risk to their body forms, as it were. And so, as I said, had I not leaned or had access to the intuitive real awareness impressions, I should go along with this experience, so I would never have had the opportunity to meet with these various individuals, and therefore be able to be in a position where I could give them the opportunity and the means by which they could extract themselves from their situation, and very likely also then there would be the possibility they would continue with their own processes of awareness. So to answer your question, that would be an example of how, through listening to the intuition, so I then would proceed with an experience that I may not necessarily have proceeded with, which then gave me the opportunity to assist others. So yeah.
Good, thank you.
Okay, now one more question for you. Let's see. Good thing about this is I can edit out all the delays on the final video while I'm trying to do a question. I really should have thought of these questions beforehand a bit more.
That's okay. This is the fun part, is being spontaneous.
Yeah, I think I need to work on my spontaneity a bit. Okay. So I'll probably go back to another Ekankar related question. So I know you were in Ekankar for 40 years, or a length of that duration, and so you were there when basically it became distorted and it got taken out, and how you moved in and was being manipulated by reptilian and Joni and such, and then there would come a point where you had the transition into the new presentation, and so prior to finding Dwayne and the new presentation, did you have any intuitive nudges or inclinations that something was seriously wrong with the Ekankar Corporation?
No, I didn't.
That was the easy one.
No, but I was actually okay with Ekankar. I was okay for 40 years. I was going along and doing my thing, doing Bahana work, as they call it, Bahana work, or missionary work. I enjoyed going out and giving talks and sharing about Ekankar, but I was okay with it. The only thing that I would say intuitively that I would have liked to improve on was this master Chila or student relationship, where I was kind of intimidated by Harold Klemp and Darwin Gross, and those are the two that I knew personally, or knew, I had met them before personally, but there was this distance between this idea of master-student, and I thought, why can't I just be his friend, or have some other kind of relationship with him? Why does it have to be this way? So intuitively, I wasn't quite right with that. Everything else was okay. So here comes Dwayne, and he says, the master guru, days of masters and gurus are over. We're being to being. There's no higher or lower between us. Everybody's basically equal, except for awareness. Some people are more aware than others, which is whatever. But I really like this part where everybody's on equal footing, and you have an opportunity to create here in creation whatever you want, to create what you want to help contribute to this overall awareness. So I really liked that. It was a different viewpoint, and really I had no trouble transitioning. Well, a little bit, but not. It was like the same when I went from Christianity to Ekankar. There was like, am I doing the right thing? There's some guilt involved. Well, for a while, from Ekankar to the new presentation, which Dwayne created, well, there was a little bit of twinge, but not really. I mean, not really, because Dwayne made so much sense. The way he talked and the things he shared were so different, so unique, that this was obvious to me. It was the next step. I mean, it was obvious there's something more going on. So my transition was pretty fluid. And then once I remember a real side experience where I did ask I asked Paul Twitchell, what do you think of Dwayne? And he gave me this funny face, and he turned into a werewolf. Kind of. I don't know. I still don't know exactly what that means, but it was just like, like, don't bother me. But that's the only time I had something really. Oh, there's another time too where I was on one of the Skypes where Dwayne couldn't remember somebody's name. This is like the second Skype I was on, and I said, if you're like this, he wouldn't call himself a master, but he was the guy, the physician. if you can't even remember somebody's name, there must be something going on. But I got over that real quick because, he's just a guy, he's just another free being of light like we all are. And, his personal self has whatever. I mean, we all have our human part of ourselves that forgets things or forgets where we left our keys, and the individual choices we have as personal self. So I got over that part where there's a personal self and then there's the real awareness, and his real awareness is up and going and able to show other real awarenesses references so they can become more aware. So it's really, it was not hard, and in the end, and here I am. I'm fortunate to be here. I'm really grateful to be with Kevin and other new friends that are, they're going for more awareness, and they're going to become more aware, and that's the adventure right there. Life wants to become more aware of itself, and we're part of that process. As it becomes more aware, as we become more aware, it becomes more aware, and that's so cool to be part of that. And there's really no personal self. We utilize it, but actually it's not that important, except as a tool here in creation. But otherwise, we're just like the air. We're just like point of view that can be anywhere, anything, and there's a freeness to it. And I'm not sure what your question was. Could you repeat it one more time so I can finish with it?
The original question was, while you were in Eckankar before you transitioned into the new presentation, do you have any intuitive inclination there was something wrong with the corruption that it had become?
No, I was really. Like I say, I was okay. I mean, I saw a transition from a lot more restrictions and guidelines to where in the old days it was like the Old West where you could just go out and give a talk, maybe mention it to the RISA, or the area guide there, the area representative, and just go out and give a talk. And then later on it became you needed the permission of the area rep, the state representative, and the Eckankar office. I mean, you needed to fill out forms basically all along the way to get permission to do anything, and that was kind of strange. But I thought, like a lot of Ekkas, where you're just trying to protect the organization, keep it pure. I mean, there's a lot of rationalization I did along the way as it became more corrupt or more restricted. But in the end, fortunate to find Dwayne and what we're doing now is totally different.
Okay, very good.
So thank you, everybody. That's our little sharing today. And again, we'll be here next week on Facebook Live to share about intuition and how it can benefit you and everybody else. So thank you, and see you next time.
Finish with the new song again?
Yes. New you.
What has become known as dreams is actually your intuitive senses that provide new openings to far more than what can be experienced on Earth. Over the course of time, which has been many lifetimes, the world controllers have constantly changed history according to what they have decided for them. And this is why most unaware people are very confused as to why they are here now. The present-day education systems created by them are the result of tricking unaware people into a gradual transformation from the all-natural intuitive senses into convinced academic and literalized specimens, where they become the subjects to continuously and for more ongoing lifetimes work the contrived business world for capitalized controllers. Do the birds do this and also destroy what is all natural for themselves? You can contact Val Vitols at 408-990-6627 or email at valvitols4@yahoo.com. Thank you.